The wind cuts through the streets of Milbrook, Pennsylvania, carrying with it an unspoken chill that sinks deep into your bones. It's the autumn of 1823, and the town, with its quiet roads and humble homes, seems untouched by time. The low murmur of conversation mixes with the sound of rustling leaves, but beneath the calm exterior, something is wrong. 17 deaths in 3 months, all of them linked by one place, the Hartwell Funeral Parlor. It's a name whispered with both reverence and fear, a family-run establishment that has cared for the deceased of this town for over 2 decades. Their reputation for handling death with care, for easing the pain of grief, is known across the region. People trust the Hartwells with their most sacred moments, the final rites of their loved ones. But something in the air feels off. You can almost taste the weight of it, as if the town itself is holding its breath, waiting for something. The funeral home, a place once associated with solemnity, now seems to exude an unnatural stillness. The flicker of candlelight in the windows casts long shadows, making the building feel as though it's alive, watching you. You step closer, the ground beneath your boots crunching with each step, and you can't shake the feeling that something is lurking just beyond the threshold. Inside, the air is thick with the familiar scent of embalming fluids and dust. It's a scent you've known all your life, but today it's different. The silence here is not peaceful, it's suffocating. You walk deeper, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes, or maybe none at all, watching your every movement. The tables are lined with polished instruments, tools meant for care, for preservation. But as you pass, something catches your eye. The bodies on those tables, their faces forever frozen in time, seem wrong. There's a stillness to them, a hollowness in their eyes that sends a cold shiver down your spine. The sound of footsteps breaks the silence. A physician, Dr. Samuel Harrison, enters, his presence heavy with authority. He's come to do what he does every year, to inspect, to ensure the town's health and safety. But as his trained eyes scan the bodies laid out before him, something shifts. There's an unease in his step, a hesitation in his touch, as he lifts the sheets to examine the corpses. The first body, a woman with the telltale signs of consumption, reveals bruising around her neck. Dr. Harrison's fingers tremble ever so slightly as he reaches to touch the marks. They're not from a sickness, they're from something else, something far darker. The Hartwell family watches, too calm, too controlled. Their smiles are too practiced, too perfect, as they explain away every concern, every question with a smoothness that would deceive anyone. But you see it, the flicker of something behind their eyes. They know what Dr. Harrison has found, and it's not the first time he's noticed something wrong. With each passing moment, the truth begins to unravel. Slowly, painfully, like the peeling away of a mask that's been worn for far too long. What is this place? What is this family hiding in the basement, behind the doors that no one dares to open? As Dr. Harrison presses deeper into his investigation, you begin to realize this is not just about death. This is about something far more twisted, more calculated. The Hartwell Funeral Parlor has become something else. A funeral home of horrors. And you, now standing at the threshold, can feel the darkness pulling you closer. You don't want to know what's behind those doors, but you already do. And the truth, when it comes, will be more horrifying than anything you could have imagined. Dr. Harrison's heart beats in an uneven rhythm as he steps deeper into the funeral home's bowels. The faint creak of floorboards beneath his boots echoes through the vast, dimly lit hallway, drawing him closer to the rooms where bodies are prepared for their final resting place. The faint smell of embalming fluid and formaldehyde, that once familiar scent of death, now clings to the air like a thick fog. He enters the room, the chill pressing in around him, as if the temperature itself conspires to keep the secrets of this place frozen in time. The room is filled with the remnants of the deceased, their faces obscured beneath pale white sheets. A single candle flickers on the corner table, casting sharp, shifting shadows across the walls. Each body before him lies in solemn repose, but something about this stillness feels wrong, as if the dead are watching him with unblinking eyes, waiting. As he approaches the first body, an elderly woman named Eleanor Fairchild, who had been claimed by what was presumed to be consumption. Dr. Harrison can't help but feel a tightening in his chest. The smoothness of her skin, the pallor of her face, should have brought comfort to a man accustomed to the dead. Yet there's something unsettling about it. With practiced hands, he lifts the sheet, his gloved fingers brushing against the cool, waxy flesh. As his eyes scan her neck, his breath catches. There, beneath her burial dress, barely visible, are faint marks. Not the kind left by illness or disease, but deep, bruising marks that, in the flickering light of the candle, seem deliberate. He presses his lips together, a wave of unease settling in his gut. His mind races, pulling at the fragments of knowledge he's gathered over the years. The marks aren't consistent with the wasting disease that had claimed her life, or so the family had claimed. They are the kind of marks that can only come from hands around the neck, tightening until the breath is squeezed out. Strangulation. Dr. Harrison looks up, his eyes finding Josiah Hartwells standing nearby, watching with a cold, unreadable expression. His voice is calm, too calm, as he offers an explanation. She was positioned incorrectly during embalming. Doctor, the marks are from our procedures. The words sound rehearsed, as if Josiah has repeated them 1,000 times, each utterance further distancing the truth from reality. But something isn't right. Dr. Harrison's instincts as a physician tell him that this is no mere accident. His fingers tremble slightly as he pulls the sheet back over Eleanor's body, the weight of suspicion now heavier than any physical evidence. He steps back, and as he does, the oppressive silence in the room thickens, suffocating. "Let me see the others," Dr. Harrison says, his voice sharper than he intended. He moves toward the second body, a middle-aged man named Marcus Webb, a farmer who had allegedly died of a heart attack while working his fields. But as his eyes scan the body, Dr. Harrison notices something else. Small, puncture wounds along Marcus's arms and chest. They're too clean, too deliberate to have been caused by an accident. They don't belong to the body of a man who collapsed in the heat of the day. They belong to someone who was harmed, someone who fought back, or worse, someone who was carefully subdued. His fingers graze the wounds, and they are fresh, not the kind of injury that would be present days after death. His stomach churns. Again, he looks up at Josiah, who meets his gaze with an unwavering calmness that feels more like a mask than a demeanor. There is no guilt in his eyes, no admission of wrong, just a quiet certainty, as if he knows Dr. Harrison will find nothing. He clears his throat, offering an explanation once more. "A fall," he says, his voice betraying no hint of anxiety. He must have landed on something sharp while collapsing. But Dr. Harrison doesn't believe him. This doesn't feel right. This feels like something else. The hairs on the back of his neck stand up. It's not just the body of Marcus Webb that's bothering him, it's the growing sense that he's being led down a path that might uncover something far darker than he's prepared to confront. And as he moves to the third body, Mary Patterson, a woman who supposedly died of fever, something inside Dr. Harrison snaps. His medical training tells him that the fever she suffered was not the cause of death. The evidence is subtle but undeniable. White powder rests on her lips, on her fingertips, the residue of arsenic, a poison that has long been known to cause slow, agonizing death. It is the kind of poison that could slip into a person's life unnoticed, causing symptoms so mild they could be brushed off as part of a common illness. But arsenic also leaves a trace, a signature that cannot be ignored, not by someone who understands the depths of human anatomy and the cruel potential of toxins. Dr. Harrison feels the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His hands tremble as he reaches for his medical kit, the familiar clink of instruments unnerving in this dark, quiet room. He takes a sample of the powder, his mind racing with the implications. He has only circumstantial evidence, but it is damning. He knows this. He can feel it in his bones. The Hartwell family has hidden their darkest secrets beneath layers of careful deception. He looks up once more at Josiah and Ezekiel Hartwell, standing in the corner of the room, watching him with an unsettling calm. They know that what he's discovered could shatter everything they've built, every lie they've woven into the fabric of this town's trust. But what will they do? Will they confront him, or will they play their game of smoke and mirrors? The silence between them stretches taut, like the calm before a storm. In that moment, Dr. Harrison feels the weight of a terrible truth settle over him. The Hartwell family is hiding something far worse than anyone could have imagined, and now he's a part of it. Now there's no turning back. If you're still not subscribed, you're already one step behind in this chilling investigation. You don't want to miss what happens next, how deep the web of deceit truly goes. Subscribe now, or let us know in the comments why you're hesitating to join the journey through history's darkest corners. With every step he takes toward uncovering the truth, Dr. Harrison feels the walls closing in. The quiet of the funeral home has shifted. It's no longer peaceful, it's suffocating, and every question he asks only seems to deepen the mystery, leading him closer to the truth, but also closer to a place where the shadows no longer hide. The Hartwells are watching him, and now he's begun to understand the true cost of uncovering their secrets. The evening air thickens with an unnerving tension, and the quiet hum of Milbrook's daily life becomes a distant murmur as the townsfolk gather in hushed tones. They speak in veiled whispers, exchanging glances when they think no one is looking. The deaths have been coming, one after another, with eerie precision, unexplained, sudden, and always tied to the same family-run establishment. The townspeople, once quick to bury their grief with the help of the Hartwells, are now filled with something far darker than sorrow. They are filled with doubt. It begins in the town square. A local farmer's wife, Eleanor Fairchild, has died. It was sudden, they say, consumption, or so they were told, a sickness that claimed her as swiftly as any other in the harsh months of winter. But some recall how quickly she had fallen ill, how a once vibrant woman had become frail and pale in the blink of an eye, as if the very life had been sucked from her. And then there's Marcus Webb, a healthy man only to be found lifeless in his field with no sign of struggle. Word spreads like wildfire that these deaths, like so many others, have passed through the Hartwell Funeral Parlor, the undertakers, the ones who handle death with reverence. But are they the ones who cause it too? The town is full of questions, the first murmurs of suspicion creeping through the cracks. They had trusted the Hartwells, had trusted them with their deepest griefs. But now something is wrong, something no one can quite put their finger on. They speak of how Martha Hartwell had been seen more frequently at the homes of the ill, bringing them soup, offering comfort, but soon after, those she visited seemed to fall ill faster, their bodies deteriorating in ways that weren't normal. The whispers grow louder as the town is drawn into the web of death that now surrounds the Hartwells. And at the center of it all is Dr. Samuel Harrison. He has come to the town on his annual health inspection, but this time, something is different. His keen eye, honed by years of medical training, sees what no one else does. He sees the subtle signs that something is not as it should be. It begins with the first body, Eleanor Fairchild. He notices it immediately. The faint but unmistakable bruises around her neck. Marks that should not be there. Marks that are too deliberate, too fresh. He can't explain it away. Not with his medical expertise. His hands tremble slightly as he examines her, as the weight of suspicion begins to settle into his chest. But it's not just Eleanor. No, it's Marcus Webb too. He's the second body. Dr. Harrison's fingers brush against the puncture wounds on his chest. Small, precise, like tiny, carefully placed daggers. They are not the kind of injuries that happen from a fall or a simple collapse. No, these are deliberate, as if someone had taken a blade to his skin, a scalpel used with chilling precision. He feels a cold shiver run through him as he examines the wounds. His gut tightens. He knows this isn't an accident, and he can no longer ignore the truth that is beginning to unfurl before him. This is not natural. This is not illness. This is murder. The room grows even quieter, if that's possible, as Dr. Harrison stands there, a sick realization growing inside of him like a disease he can't rid himself of. The Hartwell family stands by, watching with unnatural calm. Josiah Hartwell, the eldest son, steps forward to offer an explanation. His voice smooth, practiced. "It's nothing, doctor." A minor complication during the embalming. Sometimes the body responds unexpectedly. He smiles, but there's something hollow in it, something cold. Dr. Harrison nods, but in his mind, the pieces are already beginning to fit together. Like the final clicks of a lock, he's too afraid to turn. His heart beats faster now, and as he moves to the third body, he can't shake the feeling that the deeper he goes, the closer he gets to the heart of something far darker than he ever imagined. This is not just a family of undertakers. They are playing God with life and death. They are manipulating it, twisting it to their will. Dr. Harrison's gaze falls on Mary Patterson, the third body, the woman who had allegedly died of a fever. But there is something else, something more sinister. As he runs his fingers over her skin, he notices the faint trace of white powder around her lips, in the folds of her mouth. He takes a deep breath, his mind already racing ahead. He knows what this is. It's arsenic. A poison, one that works slowly, subtly, making the victim feel as if they are simply ill, as if they are simply dying of natural causes. It takes its time, allowing the poison to do its work unnoticed. But there's no mistaking it now. Mary Patterson did not die of fever. She was poisoned, and the Hartwells were the ones who poisoned her. Dr. Harrison feels his throat tighten, and as he looks up, the coldness in Josiah Hartwell's eyes sends a chill through him. The young man does not flinch. He does not tremble. He is calm. Too calm. This family, This funeral home, this place, is no sanctuary for the dead. It is a house of horrors. You think this kind of evil couldn't be hidden for so long? Why are you hesitating to subscribe? You might just be missing the one thing that'll make you see the truth behind every story. Subscribe now, or share with us why you're not subscribing in the comments below. The silence in the room is deafening. Dr. Harrison knows he cannot walk away now. He knows he's standing on the precipice of something far greater, something more terrifying than a mere string of deaths. The Hartwells have hidden something far darker in this house, a secret so horrifying that the very thought of it threatens to tear apart the quiet fabric of Milbrook. They have crossed a line, one that no family should ever cross. The faint sound of footsteps on the floor above draws his attention. He knows the Hartwells are growing suspicious of his lingering, but he can't stop now. He can't walk away without knowing the truth. He turns his gaze toward the basement stairs, where the heart of this twisted operation lies. The dark, hidden chambers of the funeral home, where the bodies are prepared and the secrets are kept. He knows what he must do. He must go deeper, deeper into the darkness, into the very place where the truth is buried. The question is not whether he can uncover the truth, it's whether he can survive it. Still not subscribed? You've come this far, and you're about to hear what happens next. The truth is darker than you think. Don't wait any longer. Subscribe now, or tell us in the comments why you refuse to follow this chilling journey. The air in the basement is thick with the scent of chemicals, the cold steel of medical instruments reflecting the dim light. It's here that Dr. Harrison knows he will find the final undeniable proof. He walks slowly, deliberately, toward the farthest corner of the room, where the shadows grow darker still. And as he steps forward, the door creaks open to reveal the full extent of the Hartwell family's nightmare. The discovery will haunt him for the rest of his life. The door creaks open with an almost deafening groan, as though the very hinges are reluctant to reveal what lies beyond. The basement is darker than it should be. Despite the dim flickering light from an old lantern resting on a dusty table, it casts long, wavering shadows against the walls, and as you step into the room, the air thickens. The scent is no longer just that of embalming fluid. It is the sharp, metallic tang of something else, something far more sinister. It clings to your skin, clogs your throat, and makes every breath feel like you are suffocating. Dr. Harrison's boots scrape against the floor, the noise a sharp contrast to the oppressive silence that fills the room. His eyes scan the surroundings, his senses heightened by the creeping feeling that something terrible is about to unfold before him. The shelves lining the walls are lined with glass jars, jars containing pieces of the human body, preserved with an unnatural precision. Each jar holds an organ, carefully stored and labeled with meticulous care, as though they were mere specimens for study rather than parts of real, living people. The skin on the back of his neck prickles. This is not a place where the dead are treated with dignity. This is a place where death is dissected, examined, and turned into something else entirely. As his eyes move across the room, Dr. Harrison sees more: surgical tools, knives that glint coldly in the light, perfectly organized vials of chemicals, each one more sinister than the last. The shelves are cluttered with meticulously documented records, journals detailing experiments and practices that seem far beyond anything a funeral home would need. He reaches for one of the journals. The pages are brittle, yellowed with age, but the handwriting is clear. The entries are chilling in their clinical nature, as if the Hartwell family for years has been systematically documenting each step of their twisted operation, each victim, each method, each horrifying experiment. He flips through the pages, the words leaping out at him. Experiment 14, subject selected for analysis. Healthy male, Marcus Webb, cause of death. Heart attack induced with slow-acting poison, followed by dissection. Another entry reads, Experiment 27, Mary Patterson, fever induced using arsenic, followed by consumption of body after death, noting physical changes in rigor mortis stages. His stomach churns, but he cannot stop reading. His medical training is trained to observe, to understand. But this is beyond anything he has ever seen. These are not records of funeral arrangements. They are records of cold, calculated murder. Dr. Harrison stumbles back, his hands shaking as he drops the journal. His mind races to understand what he's seeing, but it becomes increasingly impossible. This is no accident. This is not the work of a family, simply trying to make a living. This is a deliberate, methodical, and disturbingly clinical operation that has been in place for years. The Hartwells have been experimenting on the dead and the living alike, turning their funeral parlor into something far darker. They have been learning from their victims, testing methods of death, experimenting with poisons, observing the changes in the body as it transitions from life to death. The sound of Dr. Harrison's breath becomes loud in the otherwise silent room. His heart pounds in his chest as he continues to look around, his eyes settling on the far corner where the bodies are kept. The preserved organs, the surgical tools, everything here has been used for one purpose: to study death and how it can be manipulated. There is no reverence for the dead in this place, only a cold, calculating desire to control and understand the process of death, to treat it as a science, a means to an end. He knows now what the Hartwell family is capable of. They have used their funeral home as a cover, a way to access the vulnerable, the lonely, the sick, and turn them into their own personal laboratory specimens. There is no mercy here, no compassion, just an insatiable need to experiment, to control the final moment of life and death. The victims were not just buried, they were dissected, studied, and catalogued, their bodies nothing more than tools in a gruesome game. A chill runs down Dr. Harrison's spine as his eyes land on a particular set of notebooks. They are filled with more than just anatomical sketches or medical observations. These journals are more personal. They describe how the family selected their victims, how they chose people who would not be missed, those whose deaths could be quickly accepted by the grieving community without raising suspicion. They targeted the weak, the lonely, the vulnerable. Their choice of victims was deliberate, systematic, and designed to avoid detection. They knew exactly who to pick: the elderly, the ill, the ones whose deaths could be passed off as natural causes. They preyed on the desperation of families in need, offering their services for free or at a reduced rate, all the while hiding their true intentions. They had turned death into a business, but not just any business, a business built on human suffering. If you don't subscribe now, I'll bet you won't get to hear how this twisted saga ends. I dare you to say you're not interested in the truth. Let us know why you refuse to click that subscribe button in the comments. The air is suffocating. Dr. Harrison's breath feels shallow in his chest. He's been in the room too long, but he can't tear himself away. Each page he flips reveals another layer of horror, another entry that makes his blood run cold. The details are too vivid, too precise. This is no longer just about the Hartwells. This is about a twisted family that has learned to wield death as a tool for their own gain. They've found a way to control life's final moment, and they've turned it into an experiment they've perfected over the years. Dr. Harrison's mind reels, but as he turns another page, something catches his eye. The final entry in the journal reads, Experiment 42, the final test, full control over the body. Subject, Thomas Creed, the patriarch's father, to be administered a lethal dose of arsenic, followed by a controlled burial to observe the effects of delayed rigor mortis and decomposition under external conditions. It's his last entry. It's the one that exposes everything. The family, in their twisted desire to perfect their control over death, had even considered killing one of their own. They had become so consumed by their experiments that they were willing to sacrifice their own flesh and blood for the sake of knowledge. Dr. Harrison's body goes cold as he realizes what he's holding in his hands. The family's entire operation, their obsession with controlling death, has been laid out in meticulous detail. The town of Milbrook, the community that had trusted them, had been living in the shadow of something monstrous for years. And now Dr. Harrison holds the proof. He has everything he needs to expose them. But does he have the courage to do so? The weight of the discovery is crushing. As he looks around the basement, he knows this will change everything. No one will believe him. No one will trust him. They will dismiss him as paranoid, as a man overcome by the horror he's just witnessed. The Hartwells are too well entrenched in the community. The town will protect them, even if the truth is right in front of their eyes. Dr. Harrison is now trapped in a web of his own making. And as he stands there holding the journals, his heart pounds louder in his chest. The sound of footsteps grows closer. The Hartwells are coming. He has no time left. If you're not subscribed yet, you might never get to hear what happens next. This is the moment you can't afford to miss. Don't leave it to regret later. Subscribe now and make sure you're there when the full truth is finally exposed. The truth, like death, is inevitable. But for Dr. Harrison, the real question is whether he will be the one to expose it or whether it will be buried like everything else in Milbrook. As Dr. Harrison stands there in the basement, clutching the damning journals that lay bare the Hartwell family's horrors, the full weight of what he has uncovered begins to settle over him like an unbearable burden. These aren't just the ravings of a deranged family, They are the chilling accounts of years, decades even, of methodical murder, each one more horrifying than the last. The Hartwells had begun their grisly descent long before they became the trusted undertakers of Milbrook. Their history, twisted and dark, is etched into the very bones of this town. The story begins, not with the embalming tables, but with the freshly dug graves. Ezekiel Hartwell, patriarch of the family, had arrived in Milbrook nearly 20 years ago, a man with no past to speak of, no family history to anchor him to the town. He purchased a modest property and quickly established himself as the town's first funeral director, providing services that the town, in its small, isolated existence, sorely needed. At first, his reputation was impeccable. His services were affordable, and he treated the grieving with a tenderness that was rare in such a hard, rural community. But that wasn't enough for Ezekiel. No, he had bigger plans, darker ambitions than just offering a service. He began to notice something that no one else did: the value of the bodies he handled. It started small: a widow's wedding ring, a gold tooth here, a silver bracelet there, small treasures left behind by the deceased. These things could be sold after all. At first they were taken discreetly, hidden under the guise of late-night trips to the cemetery. But it wasn't long before Ezekiel became bolder. He discovered that freshly buried bodies could be exhumed in secret, their valuables stripped and sold in neighboring towns. This wasn't just a crime, it was a business, one that grew more profitable with each passing year. The first grave robbing was an accident, or so Ezekiel convinced himself. A man recently deceased, who had left behind a family with no means to bury him. The body was dug up, stripped of valuables, and tossed aside like any other forgotten relic. No one ever questioned the man's death. It was written off as natural. After all, he had been sick, his body already frail. No one saw the hands of the Hartwells working in the dark. No one saw the gold and silver being smuggled out in the night. But Ezekiel had learned something that night. He had learned that death, when managed carefully, could be a commodity, and that's when things changed. The family, once focused only on preparing the dead for burial, began to focus on something darker, creating new sources of income. By 1807, they had mastered the art of grave robbing, and it was only a small step for them to turn to murder as a means of filling their coffins. It didn't happen overnight. The first few deaths were small, almost imperceptible. Vulnerable people, those on the edges of society, began to disappear, their deaths slipping through the cracks. The townspeople assumed these were just casualties of a hard life. But the Hartwells knew better. They knew that death could be manipulated, could be planned and executed with precision. They began to target their victims deliberately, people who would be missed just enough to elicit grief, but not enough to raise suspicion. The elderly, the ill, those with no family to speak of. These were the perfect targets, people who would never question the services of the funeral home, people whose deaths would be accepted without question. Dr. Harrison now understands how the family learned to manipulate death. They didn't just rob graves, they learned to manufacture death itself. They lured their victims into a false sense of security, offering food, comfort, and a safe place to die. They played the role of the caring family, the ones who would ease the suffering of the grieving. But behind the scenes, they were feeding their victims poisons, slipping arsenic into their soup, lacing their drinks with slow-acting toxins. The victims grew weaker, their health deteriorating in ways that felt natural, even inevitable. The Hartwells had perfected this art, turning illness into an instrument of control, manipulating the human body to its final breaking point. As the years passed, their operation grew more sophisticated. The family's control over death, once a simple means of surviving, had now become an obsession. They kept detailed records, documenting each victim, each experiment, how long it took for the arsenic to take effect, how long the body stayed warm after death before rigor mortis set in. They learned how to create the perfect victim, isolated, vulnerable, in need of the Hartwells' so-called care. Dr. Harrison stands at the precipice of this knowledge, realizing that the family's crimes have escalated from mere theft to calculated murder. Their motives are no longer just financial. This is something deeper, something more perverse. They have become consumed with their ability to control life and death, to make it their business. Every victim is another step in their twisted experimentation. Every death is a carefully calculated move in a game they've been playing for years. He knows now that they didn't just want to profit from death. They wanted to own it. They wanted to understand it, manipulate it, and most terrifying of all, become the masters of it. The Hartwell family has moved beyond mere crime. They are obsessed with the science of death, turning their victims into nothing more than experiments in a lab. You don't want to hear the rest of this story? Do you think you can handle the truth? Then prove it by subscribing now. Don't be the one who regrets missing out on what happens next. Let us know in the comments why you're hesitating. The death of each victim was no longer an accident. It was a lesson, a step in the Hartwells' quest for total domination over life's final moments. The more they learned, the more they desired. The family's obsession with control grew, and with it, their ruthlessness. No longer satisfied with merely taking life, they began to savor it, to prolong it, to dissect it. Dr. Harrison now understands the true depth of the Hartwells' depravity. He realizes that what they have created is far worse than any of the deaths they've hidden. It's the systematic abuse of power over life itself. The worst part? The realization hits him like a slap to the face. He has uncovered the darkest secret Milbrook has ever known, and now he must decide whether to expose the truth, knowing full well the consequences it will have for everyone involved. You've heard part of the story, but you haven't heard it all. Don't let the darkness slip away before you know the truth. Subscribe now and let us know in the comments why you're hesitating to be part of this journey into history's darkest corners. This is no longer just about murder. It's about the insatiable hunger for control, the desire to manipulate life and death itself. And Dr. Harrison stands at the center of it, a man on the edge of a terrifying revelation that could change everything. The faces of the victims haunt the walls of Dr. Harrison's mind as he stands alone in the basement, surrounded by the chilling evidence of the Hartwell family's operation. The darkness of this room seems to expand, pulling him deeper into the web of deceit that has claimed so many lives in Milbrook. The first victims were often the ones most easily discarded, the elderly widows, the frail men too weak to protest, those who had no one to look out for them. These were the people who lived in the shadows of society, the ones who could be easily overlooked when they disappeared. But the Hartwells were not satisfied with just robbing graves. They sought to create new victims from those who seemed to have no value, and so they began with the lonely and the forgotten, carefully selecting them based on who could offer them something most important, a quick and untraceable death. One such victim was Sarah Petton, an elderly woman who had lived in Milbrook for years, respected and well known among her neighbors. She had no immediate family, only distant relatives who lived far away. Her house, small and worn with age, was often visited by Martha Hartwell, who came under the guise of offering companionship and care. Sarah had a reputation for being in relatively good health. She was no longer young, but her sharp mind and independent nature made her a respected figure in the town. Yet over the course of several weeks, Sarah began to grow ill. Martha brought her homemade soup, tended to her every need, and offered comfort during her bouts of joint pain. But Sarah's decline was swift, too fast to be attributed to her age or natural causes. Within days of Martha's visits, Sarah was bedridden, feverish, and weak. The Hartwells, who had once been the very image of care and compassion, now took the opportunity to act. Sarah's death came quietly, almost too quietly, and as the family took over the funeral preparations, no one thought to question it. But those who had known her well couldn't shake the feeling that something had been wrong, that something had been amiss in her final days. Still think this story isn't gripping enough to deserve your subscription? It's your call. But don't say you weren't warned when the next episode drops. Let us know in the comments why you're not clicking that subscribe button. The Hartwells had begun to perfect their method. They targeted people like Sarah, people whose deaths could be explained away easily enough by their age or health problems. But it didn't stop there. The family expanded their reach, using their carefully crafted image of trust to manipulate even the most well-connected in the community. They learned to prey on the desperation of the financially strained, offering services at no cost to those who could not afford the funeral expenses for a loved one. They would gain the trust of the grieving, become their sole caretakers in their time of loss, and once they had infiltrated these families, they would execute their deadly plans. Mary Patterson, a young mother of two, was another victim of their design. Mary had fallen ill with a fever, a condition that seemed innocuous enough at first. Her health quickly worsened, and when Martha Hartwell came to visit, offering her help, no one suspected anything was wrong. Mary's family was not wealthy, and Martha's sudden appearances were welcomed, as if she had been sent by some divine hand to provide the comfort they so desperately needed. The Hartwells, always so attentive, cared for her with warmth and gentleness, but over the course of several weeks, Mary's health plummeted, the fever grew unbearable, and within days she died. It wasn't long before Dr. Harrison made his unsettling discovery: traces of arsenic in Mary's body. His medical instincts immediately raised a flag, but he could not prove the cause of death. The town, still reeling from the shock of her passing, barely questioned the family's involvement. Why would anyone suspect the Hartwells? They had earned the town's trust. They had become the very cornerstone of this tight-knit community, the ones everyone turned to in times of grief. And then there was Marcus Webb, a healthy farmer, strong and capable, who had collapsed in the field one summer day, allegedly struck by a sudden heart attack. Marcus had been well known in Milbrook, a man of respectable means with a good reputation. But when Dr. Harrison examined Marcus's body, he found the evidence of foul play, the deliberate puncture marks on his chest. There was no heart attack. There was only the carefully planned execution of a man who had been targeted because of his solitude, his isolation. The Hartwells were experts at blending in, at becoming a part of their victims' lives in a way that made their eventual disappearance almost inevitable. They had woven themselves so deeply into the fabric of Milbrook that no one would dare suspect them. They had learned to manipulate, to mask their true nature behind a facade of benevolence, so that when the death came, it seemed natural, a tragedy, nothing more. The family's operation became more sophisticated as time passed. No longer just isolated cases, the Hartwells began to target the weak and the desperate, those whose deaths would leave behind no scandal, no questions. They knew how to manipulate their victims' trust, how to lull them into a false sense of security before delivering the final blow. The town never questioned them, not even when the number of deaths began to rise, and those who had once been their closest neighbors disappeared without a trace. You think you've heard enough? You haven't even scratched the surface of this twisted saga. If you're still hesitating, do us all a favor and share in the comments why you're not subscribed yet. Don't regret it when you hear the truth. Their victims were not always strangers. They were neighbors, friends, even family, people who had trusted the Hartwells with their most intimate fears and losses, only to become another name in a long, carefully compiled list of the dead. As Dr. Harrison pieces together the family's criminal history, he begins to realize the true scope of their depravity. These deaths were no longer isolated incidents. This was an operation, a business, a system designed to profit from death, to control it, to turn it into an art. But there was no escaping the truth. Every death, every victim, was part of a larger plan, one that had been growing for years. The more he learned, the more he realized how close he was to uncovering something that would change everything, the kind of truth that could never be erased, never ignored. And now, with every page of the Hartwells' journals turning, Dr. Harrison knows that the final pieces of this horrifying puzzle are almost in place. The town of Milbrook is about to learn what the Hartwell family truly is, and no one will ever look at them the same way again. The question now is simple: will the truth come out before it's too late? You've heard enough to know this story is far from over. Don't be the one who misses out on what's to come. Subscribe now and let us know why you haven't joined us in this dark journey yet. Time's running out. Dr. Harrison stands alone in his small, dimly lit office, the journal of the Hartwell family spread out before him. His hands tremble as he runs his fingers over the brittle pages, the words written in a cold, methodical hand, chilling accounts of a family's obsession with controlling life and death. His medical expertise, his knowledge of the human body, tells him what he has discovered is not just a series of unfortunate accidents. It's murder, systematic and calculated. Yet, as he reads, a gnawing feeling lingers at the back of his mind. Circumstantial evidence, that's all he has. No clear confession, no smoking gun, just the journals, the bodies, and his growing certainty that the Hartwells are guilty of far worse than anyone could imagine. The weight of the decision presses down on him, like the walls of the basement that seem to close in around him. Do I expose them now? The thought of revealing the truth without solid proof terrifies him. The town will never believe him. The Hartwell family is well entrenched here, respected by all who know them. Their good deeds, their public image, have covered up the truth for years. If Dr. Harrison speaks out without concrete evidence, he will be dismissed as a paranoid outsider, the town will turn against him, the very people he's sworn to protect will no longer trust him. His career, his life, everything could be destroyed in an instant. But every time he closes his eyes, he sees the bodies, the marks, the signs of manipulation. He feels the weight of the victims on his conscience. I have to do something. The truth is too important. If he doesn't act, if he lets the Hartwells continue their spree, then he is just as guilty as they are. Dr. Harrison knows he cannot let them continue to operate. He's already seen enough. The journals alone are damning. But the truth is, no one will believe him unless he can find undeniable proof. The victims were too isolated, too vulnerable. No one will connect the dots unless he has something irrefutable. And so, he begins to speak to the townspeople. He begins to ask questions, gently, carefully, trying to see if anyone else has noticed the strange patterns of death surrounding the Hartwell family. At first, they deny it. They shrug and mutter about coincidence. They refuse to see the signs, the glaring inconsistencies in the family's history. But then, as Dr. Harrison presses, they begin to open up. "Yes, I remember." An elderly woman whispers, her hands shaking, as she recalls the death of her sister, who had been healthy just days before she died. Martha had been visiting her a lot, bringing soup, comforting her. But after she died, no one questioned it. We just accepted it. Dr. Harrison's blood runs cold as he hears these words. He's not alone in his suspicions. The town knows. They've just been too afraid to speak out, too afraid to confront the Hartwells, to question the family that has become an integral part of their lives. Fear is what keeps the truth buried. Fear of what might happen if they speak. Fear of losing their place in the community. Fear of becoming targets themselves. You don't want to find out how this plays out? Really? You're missing a wild conclusion. You should be subscribed by now to stay ahead of the curve. Let us know why you're hesitating in the comments. The town is paralyzed by fear, each person too afraid to challenge the powerful family that has ensnared them. But Dr. Harrison can't stop. He continues to press, moving from one neighbor to the next, piecing together more accounts of odd deaths, of unexplained illnesses, of people who disappeared without a trace. The more he learns, the clearer the pattern becomes. But still, the lack of solid evidence haunts him. He approaches Sarah Pettin's family next. They are reluctant to speak at first, but then they begin to open up, one by one. They talk about Martha's visits, about how Sarah's decline seemed too rapid to be natural. They mention how the Hartwells had been so quick to offer their services, even before the doctor was called. It was almost as though they had been waiting for Sarah's death to happen. The family's suspicion grows, but they are too afraid to act. "What can we do?" they ask helplessly. "Who will believe us against them?" As Dr. Harrison leaves their home, the weight of their words presses down on him even harder. They're all afraid, they know the truth, but fear holds them in place, silencing them. His own heart aches with the realization that this is not just a story of murder. It's a story of manipulation, of fear, and of how a powerful family can weave itself so tightly into the fabric of a community that no one dares to ask questions. Dr. Harrison's sense of duty grows stronger, but so does his sense of isolation. He is alone in this, alone in his knowledge, alone in his pursuit of the truth. But there is no turning back now. He can't ignore what he's uncovered. If he doesn't act, the Hartwells will continue their reign of terror, and more people will die. The town will never look at them the same way again, not after they know the truth. But first, Dr. Harrison must find that final piece, that irrefutable evidence that will force the community to confront the darkness that has been lurking in their midst for years. He knows it's there. He knows the Hartwells have hidden it, buried it in the deepest corners of their funeral parlor. The question is, can he find it before it's too late? You've come this far, but you still haven't subscribed? The truth is closer than ever, but will you be the one left behind when it's revealed? Don't miss out on the conclusion. Subscribe now, and let us know why you're still hesitating in the comments. Dr. Harrison's determination burns stronger with every step he takes. He knows that the final battle is not just about exposing the Hartwells. It's about exposing a system of control, of power, that has been allowed to thrive in silence for far too long. The town must wake up. They must know what they have been living with. But as the tension builds, so does the danger. The Hartwells are not the type to be exposed easily. They've covered their tracks too well, buried their secrets too deep. Dr. Harrison knows he is walking a razor's edge. One wrong move, one misstep, and everything will be lost. The truth is within his grasp. All he has to do is reach out and take it. But will he make it in time to save the rest of Milbrook from the horrors that lie beneath the Hartwell Funeral Parlor? The night is unnervingly quiet as Dr. Harrison slips from shadow to shadow, his heart pounding with a quiet urgency. The town of Milbrook sleeps, unaware of the darkness that lies beneath the surface of their most trusted institution, the Hartwell Funeral Parlor. A building once associated with care and comfort now feels like something else entirely, something suffocating, something terrifying. As Dr. Harrison moves deeper into the funeral home, the weight of his discovery presses down on him like a physical force. He's been here before, but tonight, everything feels different. The air is thick with the anticipation of what he knows is waiting for him in the depths of the building, hidden away from prying eyes. The Hartwell family had always maintained an image of professionalism, of quiet dignity, but Dr. Harrison knows that image was a mask, a carefully crafted illusion designed to keep the townspeople blind to their true nature. Now, as he descends into the basement, he can feel the sinister energy pressing in around him. The familiar sterile smell of embalming fluid is overpowering, but it does nothing to mask the darker, more metallic scent beneath it. Blood, decay, and something far more primal. His steps are cautious, calculated. He knows this house, these rooms, like the back of his hand. The walls seem to close in as he moves deeper, a part of him wondering how much further he can go before he unearths a truth too horrifying to face. Yet he can't stop. Every step feels like it is drawing him closer to the heart of something monstrous, something far worse than any mere murder. He finds himself in front of a door, just barely cracked open. The dim light from the hallway flickers as he gently nudges it, the hinge creaking with an ominous groan. His eyes widen as he steps inside, his breath catching in his throat. The room before him is not like the others. It is colder, far colder, and the air feels heavier. His skin prickles as the truth begins to dawn on him. Before him stands the hidden laboratory of death. The walls are lined with glass jars, each containing pieces of the human body, preserved with unnerving precision. They are no longer bodies, they are experiments. Some are small organs, carefully labeled with dates and notes, their purpose left unspoken. Others are entire limbs, twisted and contorted in unnatural ways, preserved in chemicals as if to be studied, as if their very suffering were an object of fascination. And then, as he takes another step deeper into the room, Dr. Harrison's eyes fall on the final revelation, the journals. He reaches for one, the leather cover cracked and worn from years of use. He opens it carefully, his hands trembling as he flips through the pages. Dr. Harrison feels the room spin around him as the weight of the truth crashes down. The Hartwell family, this family that had once been so revered, had transformed their funeral parlor into something far darker than anyone could have imagined. They were not just burying the dead, they were creating their own supply of victims, systematically selecting the vulnerable, the lonely, the desperate, and turning them into experiments. The journals alone are enough to condemn them, to reveal the full extent of their crimes. But there is more, so much more, hidden in this room. This is not just a family of murderers. This is a family of monsters. And Dr. Harrison knows that if he doesn't expose them now, the cycle will continue, and more will die. His mind races as he scans the room. His heart pounds in his chest. This is it. This is the moment when everything changes. He can feel the weight of the evidence pressing down on him. And yet, there is one thought that stands out above all others. What if he's too late? What if the town is so blind, so unwilling to see, that even the truth will be buried along with the victims? You think this is enough for you? You still haven't subscribed? If you're on the fence, now's the time to show you're not afraid of the truth. Drop a comment and tell us why you refuse to hit that subscribe button. The feeling of dread that crawls up Dr. Harrison's spine is palpable. He's standing in the heart of the Hartwells' nightmare, the very room where death was manufactured, crafted, and controlled like a piece of machinery. He doesn't know how much time he has before they return, before they realize what he's found. But one thing is clear. He cannot leave this room without taking the truth with him. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for what comes next. The door creaks again, louder this time, as he steps away from the evidence. The weight of the journals in his hands feels like a physical burden. He knows he can't take them all, but he takes enough to expose the family's crimes, to bring down the wall they've built around their twisted operation. His mind is racing as he retraces his steps back through the basement, knowing that every moment he spends here is another moment the Hartwells can use to cover their tracks. But as he reaches the door, he hears it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps above. They're back, the family is returning. The sound of their voices drifts down to him from the floor above, and his heart skips a beat. He's trapped, he has no time left. The clock is ticking, and so is your chance to learn the truth. Subscribe now, and don't wait another moment to join the unraveling of this dark tale. Tell us why you're hesitating in the comments. If you're brave enough, Dr. Harrison knows what he must do. The evidence is in his hands, but he still has to escape. If he's caught, if the Hartwells find him here, he will never leave. But as he heads toward the back exit, his heart pounding with each step, the realization strikes him. He has not just uncovered a family of killers. He has uncovered an entire world of secrets, hidden away behind the walls of a funeral parlor. And he knows with a certainty that chills him to the bone that nothing will ever be the same again. Dr. Harrison's pulse is a drumbeat in his ears. As he stands frozen in the darkened hallway of the Hartwell Funeral Parlor, the journals of the Hartwell family clench tightly in his hands. The air feels thick, suffocating, as though the very walls of the house are closing in on him. The footsteps above, the ones that had drifted down to him moments ago, grow louder, closer. They're coming back. He has no time to think, no time to question his next move. His breath is shallow, but the sound of it feels too loud in the silence of the house. The journals, damning evidence of murder, of systematic destruction, are heavy in his arms. His mind races through every possible scenario, none of them good. He knows what will happen if the Hartwells find him here, holding their secrets in his hands. They will stop at nothing. They will do anything to protect what they've built, to preserve the false image they've carefully curated for the town. The thought sends a cold shiver through him. With his mind in overdrive, he moves quickly, silently, his feet barely making a sound against the wooden floorboards. He knows the layout of the funeral home well. He has been here for years, after all. But tonight, everything is different. This place, which had once seemed like a sanctuary of grief, now feels like a labyrinth of shadows and lies, each room more suffocating than the last. He hurries toward the back exit, where a small, inconspicuous door leads out into the alley behind the funeral home. His heart pounds faster, and his footsteps echo in the quiet hall, a sound that feels like thunder in the thick air. He's so close to escaping. But just as he reaches for the door, the unmistakable sound of voices from the upstairs landing reaches his ears. The Hartwells are back, and they are far too close. His stomach lurches. They can't know he's here. They can't know what he's discovered. Dr. Harrison's mind races. He pulls the door open, slipping into the narrow alley behind the funeral home, the cool night air hitting his skin like a slap. He barely registers the chill of it, too focused on the sound of the door creaking behind him. He can still hear their voices drifting down the stairs, but he's already moving, already running, his legs carrying him through the alleyway, his body moving on instinct. The journals are still clutched tightly in his arms, a weight that could very well mean his life or his death. His thoughts blur together as he races through the narrow streets of Milbrook. He needs to get out of the town. He needs to get as far away as possible. The Hartwells will be searching for him. They will know he's gone, know that he has what they've spent years concealing. The town is dark, its streets eerily silent. The homes around him seem like silent sentinels, unaware of the turmoil unfolding just beyond their quiet walls. Dr. Harrison can't shake the feeling that he's being watched, that someone is just out of sight, lurking in the shadows. His breath comes in ragged gasps as he pushes his legs to move faster, the adrenaline coursing through his body. But his mind is clouded with fear. What if they find him? What if he's too late? What if the town Milbrook has already been ensnared by the Hartwell family's control? He needs help, but who can he trust now? Everyone in Milbrook has been touched by the Hartwell's influence. They've embedded themselves so deeply in the community's life that to expose them is to risk everything. It's not just the family he's up against, it's the entire town's faith in them. If he speaks out, if he reveals what he knows, everything they've built, everything they've lied about will come crashing down. But they cannot be allowed to continue. The streets blur past him, and soon he reaches the edge of town, the lights of Milbrook fading behind him. He stops only when the funeral home is no longer visible, when the thought of the family, of the dark, twisted truth he's just uncovered, feels too far away to touch. But the weight of the journals in his arms still drags him down, and the knowledge of what he's learned still hangs heavy in his chest. He knows he can't turn back now. There's no way to undo what's been done. The only thing left is to expose the Hartwells and hope, pray, that there's still time to save the people who remain under their control. His steps slow, and the air, now cooler and filled with the scent of pine and damp earth, feels more real than ever. But even as his feet move him further from Milbrook, Dr. Harrison knows the town is still locked in the grip of the Hartwell's secret. No one can ever truly escape it, not unless the truth comes to light. The thought of returning, of dragging Milbrook out of the darkness, is terrifying. The Hartwells will come for him, of that he's sure. They won't stop. They can't. Their world is built on lies, and exposing those lies would unravel everything they've built. Still think you won't regret not subscribing to History That Bled? You have one last chance to click the button and join the dark side of history. Don't make us wonder why you aren't part of this journey. As Dr. Harrison trudges further into the night, the weight of what's to come presses on him with every step. His journey is far from over. If anything, it has only just begun. The Hartwell family's web of deceit stretches far beyond Milbrook. The full scale of their crimes is something no one is ready to face. But Dr. Harrison cannot remain silent. The truth must be told, no matter the cost. With every passing mile, Dr. Harrison feels the weight of his decision. The decision to expose the Hartwells, to risk everything for the sake of the truth. He can't help but wonder if the town will ever truly understand, if they will ever truly grasp the darkness that has been festering beneath their feet for so long. Will they see him as the hero, or as the man who tore their world apart? The journey ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The Hartwells will stop at nothing to protect their secret. And Dr. Harrison, now a man burdened with the knowledge of their twisted empire, will have to face them head-on. There is no turning back. The truth is out there, but whether it will be enough to save Milbrook from its darkest secrets is another question entirely. You've come this far, and you can't back out now. Subscribe, join the journey, and let us know in the comments why you've waited so long to take the plunge into this twisted tale of dark history. The days following Dr. Harrison's escape from Milbrook were filled with an insidious sense of inevitability. His feet had carried him far from the town, into the very wilderness where the truth could no longer hide. His journey to expose the Hartwells had cost him everything: his career, his standing in the town, and perhaps even his life. Yet, as he fled through the night, one question continued to gnaw at him. Would the truth be enough to bring down the family that had wielded death like a weapon for so long? Word spread quickly. The town of Milbrook, once a quiet place of trusting souls, was shaken to its core. The death toll from the Hartwell Funeral Parlor's hidden horrors was more than anyone had ever realized. As Dr. Harrison gathered his courage and began piecing together the final pieces of the puzzle, he couldn't help but feel the weight of history bearing down on him. The Hartwell family had spent decades hiding in plain sight, manipulating death itself, turning their funeral business into a killing machine. But now, there was no turning back. The revelations had been made, and the truth, no matter how disturbing, was spilling out into the world. But the Hartwells were not easily taken down. After fleeing Milbrook, they relocated to Oregon, assuming new identities, and continued their grisly business in the shadows. For a while, it seemed like they might get away with it. After all, who would suspect the new respectable family that had seamlessly blended into their new community? But the patterns never disappeared. Dr. Harrison's work, though incomplete, had triggered an investigation that reached far beyond Milbrook's borders. Once the police began to investigate the cases in Oregon, they found an undeniable thread linking the Hartwells to yet another string of mysterious deaths. By the time the authorities closed in, the family had been living under new names for nearly 2 years, but their dark history could not be erased. The bodies they had left behind in Milbrook spoke louder than any disguise. When the police finally found them, the Hartwells were in the middle of another one of their experiments, targeting a vulnerable widow in the town of Bend, Oregon. The family's capture was swift, but it was not without resistance. They fought fiercely, as though they could protect their empire of death with a final stand. But the law was relentless, and soon they were behind bars. Their trial, which began shortly after their capture, shocked the nation. The world had never seen anything like this, a family so consumed by their thirst for control over life and death, so adept at hiding their crimes beneath layers of respectability and charity. The trial lasted for months, each day revealing more of the Hartwell family's depravities. The prosecution laid out the evidence. Testimonies from Dr. Harrison, from victims' families, from those who had lived in the shadow of the Hartwell's funeral parlor for years. The medical records, the journals, the preserved organs, each piece of evidence painted a picture of a family that had used their knowledge and their power to inflict suffering on the innocent. Throughout the trial, the Hartwells sat in silence. Ezekiel Hartwell, the patriarch, once a figure of authority and reverence, appeared broken. His once sharp features had softened, and his eyes, once filled with a cold, calculating light, were now filled with something else: fear. His children, Josiah, Caleb, Rebecca, sat beside him, their faces empty of emotion. Yet there was a subtle tremor in their movements. They knew the verdict was inevitable. There was no escaping the truth. When the moment of sentencing arrived, there was no mercy. The family was sentenced to death by hanging. Their reign of terror had come to an end. The news sent shockwaves through the nation, and the final chapter of the Hartwell story was written in the dark ink of justice. But even as the family was led to their executions, there were no celebratory cheers, only silence. The communities they had left behind, the towns of Milbrook and Bend, would never recover from the damage the Hartwells had caused. The families who had trusted them, who had buried their loved ones under their care, would never forget the betrayal, the psychological scars, the wounds left behind by the Hartwells' manipulations would haunt them for generations. The trial and execution of the Hartwell family marked the final reckoning, but it also marked the beginning of a long process of healing for the towns they had terrorized. It was a process that would take years, even decades, to fully understand. How had the Hartwells managed to weave themselves so deeply into the fabric of Milbrook and beyond? How had they preyed on the vulnerable without anyone noticing? The answers, though many, would never be enough to erase the horrors they had inflicted. The family's story, their twisted legacy, would forever be etched into the history of those towns. The name Hartwell would never again be spoken without a tremor of fear, without the shadow of death hanging heavy in the air. For Dr. Harrison, the journey was not yet over. The truth had been exposed, but it had come at a great cost. The town of Milbrook had lost its innocence, its sense of security, and it had lost something far more precious: its trust. The community would rebuild, but it would never be the same. And for Dr. Harrison, who had sacrificed so much to bring the truth to light, the question of what he had lost in the process lingered. He had uncovered the darkest secrets of the Hartwell family, but in doing so, he had been forced to confront the darkness in his own soul, the darkness that had been ignited by the family's crimes. You stayed with us through all of this darkness, but you haven't subscribed yet? How can you live with that? Don't miss another chilling tale. Subscribe now, or let us know in the comments why you've decided against joining the History That Bled family. The story of the Hartwells, a family who turned death into their darkest art, will forever be a reminder that no evil, no matter how well hidden, can stay buried forever. The truth, no matter how ugly, will always rise to the surface, leaving behind a trail of devastation that can never be undone. And for those who uncover that truth, there is no going back. The darkness will follow them, just as it followed Dr. Harrison, long after the trial ended and the dust settled. The true cost of exposing evil is something no one can ever truly prepare for.